When the noise fades away deep into the night, you gaze at the shifting shadows outside the window. A sense of helplessness may creep over you, as if you are just a drifting leaf tossed about by the storm, unable to control your own fate. Amid the turbulent age of the Ashikaga shogunate, an era woven with wealth, betrayal and blades, there lived a serene shogun whose life stood in stark contrast to the world around him. He never actively sought military fame or supreme power, yet from the moment he was born, he was thrust into the eye of the fiercest power struggles. To the public, he was regarded as the most incompetent and cowardly Seii Taishogun in Japanese history. While the Unin War reduced Kyoto, an ancient elegant capital, to charred ruins, he chose to stay in a nearby courtyard, peacefully practicing Zen, sipping tea and admiring the moon. His seemingly indifferent attitude drew widespread condemnation in historical records. Yet hidden behind this quiet exterior, he forged an unparalleled peak of Japanese culture through his philosophy of detachment and minimalist aesthetics. Tonight, let us sit beside the flickering firelight and walk through his life with this gentle tale. The ruler who spent his whole life seeking dignity in seclusion and devoted his soul to the silvery moonlight of Ginkaku-ji is Ashikaga Yoshimasa. This is a story of spiritual retreat and defiance against destiny. People know well his tragic political career marked by repeated setbacks, and that he founded the Higashiyama culture, the supreme embodiment of Muromachi aesthetics. Few, however, realize that behind the symbol who embodied the emptiness of turbulent times and the peace of letting go, he was in truth a reserved, slender and refined man who lived a lonely life in solitude. Now stretch your body gently and steady your breath to the rhythm of the fire. We are about to return to that pivotal moment when fate began to unravel and an invisible storm was gathering. In Kyoto in the 8th month of 1467, the air was thick with oppressive heat and humidity. The massive wooden gates of the Muromachi imperial mansion stood dim in the twilight, like a lifeless giant sculpture. On this night, Ashikaga Yoshimasa, then 32 years old, sat alone in a dim side hall of the grand residence. Flames and firearms dyed the night sky an eerie crimson beyond the windows, yet his face remained calm, revealing no emotion. His powerful vassals Yamana Suzun and Hosokawa Katsumoto led 200,000 warriors into brutal street battles across Kyoto, turning the centuries-old graceful capital into a bloody wasteland. A man of exquisite taste for art, waka poetry, and the ways of heaven, Yoshimasa had once cherished a grand ambition to restore the authority of the shogunate when he first took power. But Japan was trapped in a dark age, where regional governors held private armies and the trend of subordinates overthrowing their lords prevailed. Every decree he issued to mediate conflicts was met with arrogant ridicule. Even his wife Hino Tomiko colluded with powerful courtiers behind his back, scheming over the line of succession and closing in on him politically. The humiliation of a noble ruler, the agony of strife among kin, and the constant threat of assassination weighed heavily on his frail shoulders like an icy boulder. Day after day, he stayed behind closed doors, listening to the clink of armor worn by his retainers outside. Long-term mental torment pushed him into an intense inner struggle. It was the first rift carved by fate, forcing him to choose between drowning as a puppet in the bloody political world, or finding spiritual independence in complete detachment. Late at night, staring at the charred earth outside, Yoshimasa smoothed the folds of his plain kasaya soaked in cold sweat. He sent no letters to beg for compromise from either warring faction, nor did he pour out his grievances on paper. Instead, he accepted his total political downfall with gentle yet unyielding resolve. He knew that swords and spears could no longer save this decaying world. In the darkest hours, he chose complete retreat to build a spiritual fortress for his soul, impregnable to all worldly power. In the late autumn of 1473, while smoke from the Unin War still lingered over the ruins of Kyoto, 38-year-old Ashikaga Yoshimasa made an extraordinarily noble decision beyond imagination. He formally abdicated the shogunate in favor of his young son, cutting off all worldly ties to the powerful shogunate. For years to come, he secluded himself deep within Jishoji Temple in Kyoto's Higashiyama district. Drawing on his remaining influence and limited funds, he embarked on more than a decade of artistic creation and spiritual practice amid the remote mountains away from war. To politicians and profit-seekers, such huge investments that yielded no territorial gains were nothing but foolish acts. Regional governors visited him one after another, urging him to return to politics and join the scramble for power. They even mocked him for hiding his political failures behind empty art. Many talented people lost their integrity and became tools of power amid such turmoil. But gentle and refined as he appeared, Yoshimasa was as firm and unyielding as ice at heart. He understood clearly that if he yielded to such worldly opinions, his pure artistic pursuits would forever be reduced to political accessories. Faced with misunderstanding and disdain from the world, he held fast to his place beyond the vanity of power, maintaining his poise with calm perseverance day after day. Rejecting calls to return to court, he pursued the ultimate realm of aesthetics and integrated the serene wabi-sabi philosophy of Zen into his dwellings. He ordered craftsmen to gather naturally flawed stones and arrange them into minimalist dry landscape gardens. He admired simple, unadorned black tea bowls with rough surfaces, striving to find the true essence of life within imperfection and asymmetry. Retainers and painters often watched his upright, lonely figure late at night, feeling the profound Zen tranquility surrounding him. In this quiet struggle between his ideals and the worldly tide, he sacrificed his political career to safeguard the artistic integrity of every pavilion and every cup of tea. It was through his devotion that Higashiyama culture was forever etched into the annals of history. For hundreds of years, people have viewed Ashikaga Yoshimasa with curiosity, and deeply misunderstood this reclusive genius. Seeing the serene silver pavilion, elegant halls and tranquil tea ceremony aesthetics he created, people assumed he was eccentric, gloomy, and unapproachable. Later folk tales distorted his deeds further, portraying him as a cold ruler who indulged in his own pleasures and ignored the suffering of the people. The truth is that Yoshimasa possessed a heart as pure and lonely as clear spring water hidden deep in remote mountains. He always treated his attendants and craftsmen with humility and courtesy. When artists like Murata Juko and Amami made mistakes, he responded with a soft smile and patient guidance. Even amid great social upheaval, kindness and compassion always dwelt in his heart. His quiet and reserved nature stood in stark contrast to the passion and romance embodied in his works, creating the most thought-provoking paradox of his life. He was able to interpret the beauty of emptiness and serenity in such a touching and soothing way, because he had long transcended the boundaries of life and death and found his own spiritual sanctuary. In turbulent times, warlords obsessed over territories and power, living in constant anxiety and eager to prove their greatness through brute force. Yoshimasa, however, stood firm like a silent stone statue, adhering to his artistic principles. If a residence could not hold his reflections on humanity, or a cup of tea could not ease his inner turmoil, he would rather sit in quiet contemplation than compromise with this restless, treacherous era and engage in petty power struggles. The world laughed at his cowardice and escapism. Yet only those who truly understood his works could realize that one could never create such enduring tranquility to soothe troubled souls across centuries amid the ravages of war, without holding profound compassion for all living beings. On the 7th day of the first lunar month in 1490, heavy snow fell across Higashiyama in Kyoto. Frigid winds swept through the wooden beams of the unfinished silver pavilion, flickering the faint candlelight inside. The quiet Tokyu-do hall was filled with the subtle fragrance of sandalwood. 55-year-old Ashikaga Yoshimasa leaned weakly on a wooden chair, a single tear rolling silently down his cheek. His health had deteriorated severely. Severe hemiplegia left his right hand too weak to hold a writing brush. He had long seen through the schemes and intrigues of this world. As his life drew to a close, those governors who had once betrayed and ridiculed him came again. They tempted him with power and interests, persuading him to leave a last will and meddle in the succession dispute, to become a pawn in worldly power games once more. "Lord Shogun, times have changed," they said. "If you give your consent, you may rule the shogunate once again." Through his thick reading glasses, Yoshimasa shook his head gently but resolutely. He knew the chains of destiny would never set him free. His life was forever bound to the cold Muromachi shogunate. He refused to cater to the restless world and fabricate a forced happy ending. It was the clearest and most aloof resistance from a steadfast idealist against a chaotic age. He turned his gaze slowly to the silver pavilion looming faintly through the snow. Perched on its roof stood a bronze phoenix he had placed with his own hands, raising its head proudly against the wind and snow, as if flying toward a pure land free of plots and betrayal. On this cold dawn covered in snow, beside the cup of matcha that had long gone cold, which embodied the original Zen spirit of Japanese tea ceremony, Ashikaga Yoshimasa closed his eyes peacefully, having witnessed all the vicissitudes of the turbulent world. He left no political will regarding territory division or power struggles. With a dignified departure, he never bowed to any powerful force, nor became a slave to fame and fortune. With his pure and tranquil spirit, he broke the oppression of human dignity in the warring samurai era. When all commotion fades away, the valleys of Higashiyama sink into complete silence. The winds of time have carried away the smoke of war, leaving behind a modern city standing on old battlefields. Looking back on Ashikaga Yoshimasa's life, we may finally solve the core puzzle raised at the beginning: what truly distinguishes retreat from dignity? What legacy did this misunderstood and neglected shogun leave to the world? Was it the elegant silver pavilion that still glows softly in the night, or the absolute freedom he gained after breaking free from physical limitations and worldly power? In fact, his most precious legacy is a way of life, to remain disciplined and peaceful at heart, even after seeing the harsh truths of wealth, power, and reality. On this quiet night by the dim firelight, when we recall his slender figure and aloof spirit, who spent his whole life seeking light amid loneliness, we are freed from the anxiety of unfulfilled desires and embraced by lasting peace. Throughout his 55 years, he held fast to his beliefs in solitude and restraint, helping us confront the inevitable loss and oblivion in life. When trapped in difficulties, we too can face destiny with grace and courage, just as he did. The silver pavilion and dry landscape garden standing firm through wind and snow have become a spiritual symbol. As long as you preserve your inner purity and tenderness in the darkest times, you will never be defeated by the era. Night has deepened, and the whole city has fallen into sound sleep. After hearing this story, may you relax your furrowed brows and lay your weary body down in the warm bedding. Let go of anxiety about the future and regrets of the past, and let all troubles turn into gentle dreams tonight. Close your eyes, and drift into peaceful sleep as the faint light gradually fades. Good night.